May 3rd, 1943, North Atlantic, 270 miles west of Ireland. A cold moon hangs low over the waves, a pale silver coin rising and falling with each swell. Beneath that restless surface, at periscope depth, Capitan Lieutenant Hans Ritter stands braced against the metal frame inside U-boat U-407. The hull groans around him, the steel flexing like the ribs of some tired beast. Every man on board has learned to read those groans like a heartbeat. Tonight that heartbeat feels wrong. Ritter lowers the periscope. Drops of seawater run down the lenses and strike the steel deck with a soft, steady rhythm. Behind him, the control room glows a muted red, the sort of light meant to preserve night vision, but which now only makes every face look gaunt and sleepless. The hydrophone operator, Matrosengefreiter Keller, removes one earphone and swallows hard. Herr Kapitän, something's out there. Ritter turns. Describe it. Keller hesitates, as if searching for the right words. Not a ship, not screws. It's a pulse. Slow, regular, like someone knocking on the hull. A cold line travels down Ritter's spine. The crewmen nearby glance at each other. They've all heard rumors. New Allied technologies, new tricks, new ways to hunt them. But until now, none of them has ever heard this. Ritter steps closer to Keller's console. The operator presses one headphone into Ritter's hand. A faint ping echoes inside the cup. Not the echo of a rock, not propeller cavitation. A steady, deliberate, searching ping. ASDIC, British sonar. Ritter exhales through his teeth. They shouldn't be this close. His navigator, Lieutenant Vogel, murmurs, "Maybe we've drifted too far west?" "No," Ritter replies. "They've extended their reach." He tries to project confidence, but even he can hear the thinness in his own voice. A shout comes from the aft compartment. The green depth-hold lamp flickers. Someone curses under their breath. The boat trembles again, just slightly. But Ritter recognizes the tremble, a vibration from above. Aircraft. At night. That should be impossible. "Secure periscope," Ritter orders. "Rig for silent running. No motors, no pumps, nothing." The control room falls still. Men freeze in place, barely breathing. The U-boat becomes a drifting shadow beneath the waves. Through the steel hull, faint but undeniable, comes another sound. Whoom! Click! Whoom! Click! Like a giant mechanical heartbeat sweeping the ocean. Radar, airborne radar. A weapon he cannot see, cannot fight, but can only endure. A young seaman whispers, "They can find us even in the dark now?" Ritter gives no answer. The truth would only spread panic. Yes, they can. Another pulse and another. The Allies are not searching randomly. They are tracking. Ritter grips the handrail, knuckles white. How far? Keller closes his eyes, calculating. 2 kilometers. Maybe less. The control room tightens like a clenched fist. Then, cutting through the darkness, a new sound erupts overhead, a rising mechanical howl, followed by the roar of an aircraft engine diving low and fast. Ritter's breath catches. "Lee light," he whispers. Even submerged, they hear the sudden electrical surge, the telltale hum of a powerful floodlight igniting somewhere above the waves. The Allies have found them. And for the first time in the war, Ritter realizes something he never allowed himself to think. The U-boat is no longer the hunter. It is prey. His chief engineer, Feldwebel Schuster, leans close and speaks in a low voice meant only for the captain. "Herr Kapitän, if they can see at night and they can hear beneath the surface, what chance do we have?" Ritter doesn't answer immediately. He stares up at the metal ceiling, the only thing separating his men from the aircraft above. He listens to the sonar pulses, the radar hum, the engines circling overhead like wolves. He thinks of Donitz's radio broadcasts, the propaganda of invincible U-boats, the maps with red lines showing Allied ships sunk by the thousands. He wonders how much of it is still true. Then, Distant but unmistakable comes the clatter of something heavy striking the water. A splash, followed by a second, and a third. Schuster's eyes widen. Depth charges. Ritter says nothing. In the red glow of the control room, with the pulse of Allied sonar growing louder and closer, he understands one thing with absolute clarity. The ocean is no longer theirs. It belongs to the machines hunting them. The first depth charge detonates at 0218. A thunderous, crushing boom rolls across the hull, shaking every rivet. The lights flicker. Dust rains down from the overhead pipes. Several crewmen flinch instinctively, hands covering their ears. The second blast hits closer. A terrible metallic shriek echoes through the submarine, steel twisting under pressure. The floor tilts. Someone loses their footing and crashes into a valve panel. "Halton, Halton," Ritter shouts. "Keep her level." But U-407 is sliding deeper, pulled by its own wounded ballast tanks. The gauges jitter. The depth needle creeps downward as if dragged by an invisible hand. 110 meters, 115, 120. Feldwebel Schuster yanks open a pressure gauge and squints. "We're taking on water in the forward bilge." Ritter forces calm into his voice. "Slow pumps only, barely above a whisper. If Asdick hears us, we're finished." Schuster hesitates. "If we don't pump, we'll descend past crush depth." Ritter nods. "A quiet death or a loud one? Choose the loud one. Start pumps." The soft thrum begins. Every man on board tenses. That faint vibration to Allied sonar might as well be a scream. Above them, the aircraft circles back. Its engines grow louder again, descending into a low hunting orbit. The faint hum of the lee lights generator vibrates through the water, even at this depth. Keller, pale as bone, whispers, "They can see us even when we dive." How? Ritter answers without looking at him. "Radar. They follow our last surface trace, then turn the ocean into daylight when they descend." He remembers old training manuals from 1941, diagrams explaining how fragile Allied radar is, how U-boats simply needed to stay submerged at night to become invisible. Those manuals were lies now. Ping, ping, ping. The Asdick grows sharper, more focused, the beam locking onto their exact position. Vogel mutters under his breath, "It shouldn't be this strong at night. They used to lose us after sunset." Ritter closes his eyes for a moment. Not long ago, U-boats could surface freely after dusk, charging batteries under the cover of darkness. Now, with radar-equipped Liberators and Wellingtons, the night has become lethal. Another depth charge splashes. Another series follows. The Allies are bracketing the submarine. A third explosion rocks the aft section. A wrench clatters across the deck. Someone screams. The lights flicker again, longer this time, plunging the control room into near darkness before stabilizing. The chief petty officer, Obermott Kraus, wipes sweat and seawater from his brow. "Herr Kapitän, old tactics won't save us anymore." Ritter doesn't respond immediately. He's thinking about donuts again. The grand doctrine, the wolf pack, the myth that German submarines ruled the Atlantic. But the truth stands before him louder than the sonar pings. Allied technology has leaped ahead, and U-boats have become relics. The hull groans again. One of the junior machinists breaks into quiet sobs. Another sailor grips the bulkhead and mutters a prayer. Ritter must keep them together. He moves to the center of the room, steadying himself against the tilt of the deck. "Listen to me," he says loudly, firmly. "This is not 1941. This is not the happy time. The enemy has changed. So must we." Keller swallows. "But Herr Kapitän, how do we fight machines that see in the dark and hear through steel?" Ritter's jaw clenches. "We stop pretending we are the hunters." The Asdick ping grows louder, sharper, closer. Another run is coming. Suddenly the hydrophone erupts with a violent static roar, the unmistakable sound of an aircraft diving. "Brace!" Ritter shouts. The next depth charge detonates with a force that feels like a giant fist crushing the boat. The overhead pipes rupture, spraying freezing seawater. A valve bursts open, steam hisses. Someone crashes into the radio console. "Forward trim failing," Vogel cries. "Bow is dropping." The depth gauge needle slides downward again, too fast. 160 meters, 165. A catastrophic descent. Schuster grips Ritter's arm. "We can't take another blast, Herr Kapitän. The next run will break us." Ritter knows. Everyone knows. Above them, the aircraft circles one more time, taking its time, preparing another attack run, confident, relentless. And in that long, terrible pause between explosions, something shifts in Ritter's face. A realization. A confession more painful than any wound. He speaks quietly, not to the crew, but to himself. "The Atlantic no longer belongs to us. It belongs to them." The depth gauge steadies at 168 meters, a point far below the comfort zone of U-407, but just above the red danger mark the crew silently prays never to cross. The submarine hangs there like a wounded animal suspended in darkness, waiting for the next blow. The men whisper to themselves, to God, to anyone who might listen in the crushing quiet. In the control room, Ritter grips a handrail as another groan ripples through the hull. Not a blast this time, just the ocean reminding them how small they are. He scans the gauges. Every needle trembles, not from the sea but from fear radiating through the steel. Schuster wipes condensation from a valve wheel and mutters, "If we go 10 meters more, the hull will sing like glass." Ritter hears him and knows he's right. "Level the trim," he orders, voice rough but steady. "We hold here, no deeper." The engineer nods and relays instructions. Men in soaked coveralls fight to equalize ballast without making noise. Every adjustment gentle, careful, terrified of betraying their position. Keller lifts a hand, signaling for silence. Through the hydrophones, a sparkling hiss erupts. Radar, right overhead. Then the ping returns, sharper, cleaner, more confident than before. The enemy is reacquiring them. "They're not guessing anymore," Keller whispers. "They see us as clearly as if we had lanterns on the mast." Vogel leans over the chart table. "Herr Kapitän, if they keep using ASDIC like that, they can read our depth, our angle, even our heading." Ritter doesn't respond. His mind spins through possibilities, through outdated doctrines, through advice from commanders who had never been inside a U-boat under this kind of pressure. He thinks of Admiral Dönitz speaking about the invisible warriors of the Atlantic, the wolves of the deep. But nothing about this feels like hunting. A deep, rolling boom echoes in the distance. Not an explosion. Something larger. A ship. Schuster stiffens. Destroyer. He hears the pattern of the screws. Disciplined, fast, cold. The aircraft above has done its job. Now the surface hunters move in. Keller presses both headphones to his ears. Multiple contacts. 3 destroyers. They're forming a net. Ritter's jaw tightens. A coordinated attack, aircraft marking the target, destroyers closing from opposite vectors, sonar pinning them against the seabed. A perfect trap, a technique unheard of 2 years ago. The destroyers begin their sweep. Ping, ping, ping. The sound is no longer a distant echo. It slams into the hull, vibrating through the steel, sharp enough to rattle fillings. Young Matros Dieter clutches his cross and murmurs, "They know exactly where we are." Ritter kneels beside him. "Pull yourself together, Dieter. The boat needs every man." "But, Herr Kapitän," the boy stammers, "we've never been hunted like this." Ritter doesn't deny it. He looks the sailor in the eye. "You're right. This is new. A new world," he thinks. A world where U-boats don't rule the night, don't vanish beneath the waves, don't terrorize convoys with impunity. A world where allied machines are evolving faster than the U-boats can adapt. Another blast shatters the moment, close, violent. Several lights go dark. Men hit the floor. Steam pours from a ruptured pipe. Schuster yells, "Pressure spike on the port side tanks." Ritter shouts, "Seal it now!" The crew scrambles. Hands tremble. Blood drips from someone's forehead. A toolbox skids across the deck as the submarine lurches. Then the hydrophone shrieks again, a roar of propellers and churned water. The destroyers are circling back for another run. Keller's voice breaks. "They're not losing contact, Herr Kapitän. They're not losing us at all." Ritter grips the chart table to steady himself. His mind flashes back to his first U-boat patrol in 1941, when a single submarine could sink 5 ships in a week, when Allied escorts were blind and deaf, when the ocean felt endless. But now it feels like a cage. A cold certainty takes hold in his chest, heavier than any depth charge. He whispers, almost too quietly to hear, "It's over. The age of the U-boat is over." The crew doesn't speak. They don't have to. Everyone hears the truth in the way the pinging locks tighter around them, in the way the destroyers maneuver with surgical precision, in the way the ocean itself seems to close around their hull. In 1941, they were ghosts. In 1943, they are targets. Ritter inhales slowly, deeply, preparing himself not for survival, but for decisions no commander ever wants to face. He looks at the depth gauge. He looks at his men. He listens to the sonar pulse that has become their death knell. And he understands at last. The enemy hasn't just found their boat. The enemy has found the future, and the U-boat has no place in it anymore. The destroyers return like wolves circling a bleeding stag. Their screws churn the water above U-407 with a steady predatory rhythm. Keller tracks them through the hydrophone, his face drained of color, his breathing shallow. Every few seconds, he lifts a trembling finger to trace the shifting bearings on his chart. Each vector points inward, closing the net. 3 ships on tightening formation, he whispers. Hunt-class escorts, fast ones. Ritter studies the chart. There's no opening, no blind angle, no weakness. In 1941, a destroyer attack meant chaos. Escorts fumbling in the dark, Azdic beams sweeping too wide or too shallow, depth charges tossed in nervous clusters. But these escorts, these crews, they move like surgeons. The first run begins. A rising hum vibrates through the hull, the sound of charges rolling off rails and racks. Then the water erupts. Boom, boom, boom. The submarine shudders violently, bolts rattle free, a metal cup flies off a table and smashes against the bulkhead. The lights dim to a sickly red. Kraus stumbles, catching himself on a handwheel. Hit on the starboard side, outer hull only, but she won't take many like that. Ritter grabs a handrail as another series of concussions ripples through the submarine. His teeth clack together from the shock. His ears ring. His vision blurs, but he forces himself to remain upright. Schuster wipes grime from his face and shouts over the groaning metal, "They're using a pattern. Depth charges stepped at 10-meter intervals." Ritter knows what that means. British and Canadian escorts have learned exactly how to trap a U-boat, using a staggered descent of explosives to hammer every possible depth. Old tactics might avoid one charge, but never a whole staircase of them. A pipe burst overhead. Scalding steam floods the corner of the control room. Men fall back, shielding their faces. Someone screams. Another sailor coughs violently as the heat stings his lungs. "Shut it down," Ritter barks. "Isolate that line." Schuster and 2 machinists leap forward despite the danger, wrestling the valve shut until the hiss dies. Silence returns, the heavy, smothering silence of the deep, broken only by the ping of Azdic echoing through the hull. Ping, ping, ping. Each pulse vibrates like a hammer tapping the walls of a coffin. Vogel studies the depth gauge. "Herr Kapitän, we're rising. Only a meter or 2, but it's enough for them to recalibrate." Ritter slams a fist onto the chart table. "Trim it out. Keep her steady." But the boat won't hold. Water has crept into compartments they can't reach. The pumps strain. The ballast groans. With each faint rise or drop, the enemy adjusts. Keller hears it first. Through the hydrophone comes a new sound, faster screws approaching from the west. "Another ship," he cries, "a fourth escort." The crew stiffens. 4 destroyers mean a full hunter-killer team, the most advanced Allied anti-submarine formation, created specifically for moments like this. Dieter whispers, "They brought a whole pack for us." Ritter recognizes the fear in the young sailor's eyes, the same fear he hides in his own. But the commander cannot break. "We stay silent," he says, "silent and deep." But silence no longer matters. Not against new sonar, not against squadrons flying with centimetric radar, not against escorts that can pinpoint a submarine with math instead of luck. Ping, ping, ping. The signal slams into them again, sharper than before. Keller flinches. "Herr Kapitän?" They've locked depth. They know we're at exactly 168. A chill creeps down Ritter's spine. This is the moment every U-boat captain fears. The moment when he realizes he is no longer invisible, no longer elusive, no longer the terror of the Atlantic. The hunters above know everything. Schuster approaches quietly. "Sir, if we stay, they'll crack us open." Ritter nods. "I know. And if we surface..." Schuster hesitates. "The aircraft will tear us apart." Ritter knows that too. A commander's mind must weigh 2 kinds of death: crushed beneath the Atlantic or burned alive on the surface. He stares at the trembling gauges. He stares at the exhausted faces of his crew. He stares at the condensation forming on the overhead pipes, droplets trembling with each sonar pulse, as if the ocean itself is knocking to come inside. For the first time in all his patrols, Ritter feels something he has never felt before. Not courage, not fear, but finality. He inhales, steadying his voice. "Prepare for emergency surface," he says softly. Keller looks up, stunned. "Herr Kapitän, they'll see us instantly." "They already do," Ritter replies. "Down here we wait to drown. Up there we might have a chance." A slim chance, a desperate chance, but a chance nonetheless. Ritter grips the handrail. "Men," he says loudly, "ready yourselves. When we surface, we fight." His voice echoes through the cramped control room. Not a voice of hope, not a voice of victory, but the voice of a man facing the death of an entire era. U-407 groans as ballast shifts. The crew braces. Ritter closes his eyes for a single moment, not to pray, but to mourn the end of something he once believed indestructible. The U-boat rises. The ascent begins with a deep metallic roar. Ballast tanks blowing, compressed air surging through rusted pipes, forcing the wounded submarine upward. The hull vibrates under the sudden change in pressure. Men cling to pipes and handrails as the floor tilts beneath their feet. Vogel calls out the depth, 150 meters, 140, rising fast. Keller pulls off his headphones, no longer needing them. The sea itself carries the growing thunder of screws as destroyers converge overhead. Ritter barks, "Stand by for surface breach." Every man knows what comes next. At periscope depth, the aircraft will already be diving. The lee light will ignite the ocean like daylight. Machine guns and depth charges set to explode on contact will finish the job. But there is no turning back. 20 meters, Vogel shouts. The boat surges upward. 10 meters. The deck shudders. Then U-407 bursts into the night, water cascading off her hull. Instantly, a blinding cone of white light detonates across the bow. The lee light. Every rivet, every dent, every terrified face glows under its brutal glare. Above them, the silhouette of a Wellington bomber sweeps low. Engines howling, guns already spitting fire. Tracer rounds rake the conning tower. "Get to the bridge," Ritter roars. "Return fire." Kraus, Schuster, and 2 deck gunners scramble up the ladder. Icy wind slams into them as they reach the open air. Bullets spark across the metal around them. The North Atlantic erupts in fire and spray. Ritter follows, emerging into chaos. The sea is alive with predators. To port, a Hunt-class destroyer charges toward them, bow cutting the waves like a blade. To starboard, another destroyer turns broadside, preparing to unleash every gun aboard. And behind them, the aircraft circles for a second strike. The sky, the sea, the horizon itself, all aligned to kill them. Ritter grips the railing as wind tears at his coat. "Fire!" he shouts. The 20mm cannons scream to life, hurling tracers into the black sky. Shell casings clatter across the deck. A burst clips the bomber's wing, but it keeps coming, undeterred. Schuster shouts over the storm, "We can't keep her steady." A destroyer fires star shells, exploding overhead, turning night into blinding artificial daylight. Now the escorts have perfect vision. Now the killing blow begins. A column of water erupts beside the hull. A destroyer's depth charge, fired like a mortar to strike a surfaced sub. The second lands closer. The third hits home. The blast tears open the aft plating. Ritter feels the deck heave beneath him. Smoke pours from the conning tower. Flames lick the sky. Men scream. Dieter is thrown across the deck, disappearing into a cloud of white spray. Schuster grabs Ritter's arm. "We can't win. We have to abandon." Ritter looks around. His men broken, his boat shattered, the ocean filled with enemies, the sky filled with light. A world where machines, not submarines, dominate the night. He lowers his head. "Abandon ship," he whispers. The words taste like ash. The crew scrambles. Some leap, some climb, some pray. The North Atlantic swallows them, one by one. Ritter is the last to leave the deck. He touches the metal of U-407, once his home, his weapon, his pride, and feels nothing but cold, lifeless steel. "Forgive me," he murmurs to the boat, to his men, to the ghosts of the early war. Then he jumps. As he hits the freezing water, the bomber makes its final pass. The lee light shines on the sinking submarine. Destroyers close in, guns pounding, steel buckles. The ocean claims it's dead. And with a final thunderous groan, U-407 slips beneath the waves. The age of the wolf pack dies with her. Above the wreck, Ritter floats in the wreckage, waves crashing over him, Allied searchlights sweeping the water. He coughs, choking on seawater, shivering violently. For the first time in the entire war, he feels small. He looks at the sky, lit by machines he once dismissed, and he understands with brutal clarity the ocean is no longer ruled by men but by technology.